Hello, everybody. You really want to hear this? Blockchain does not work. Because blockchain doesn't work if our planet doesn't work. We're investing so much money in technology, whether it's blockchain or AI, fancy cars, whatever, but if we're not taking care of our environment and if we end up living on a planet that is falling apart, it doesn't matter how much money we invested into technology. And that is the problem we're facing today. 27 soccer fields. Anybody know what that means with that picture in the background? That is the number of soccer fields equivalent we're cutting down every minute of every hour of every day. That's the current rate of deforestation. That's about 500 trees per second globally, and we've been doing that for many, many years. At this rate, in about 50 to 60 years, there is no rainforest left anymore on the planet. Now, show of hands, how many of you think that we have a real problem if there's no rainforest left? I think so too. There are a couple of people in the world that argue that climate change isn't real, but I think with an overwhelming 90-something% of the international scientific community agreeing that climate change is caused by human intervention, I think we're at the stage where we need to acknowledge that climate change is happening. We have devastation happening around the world caused by climate change, and we know that we humans have caused this partially. There was actually a report released yesterday in the New York Times, if you want to have a look at it, that says that we got the numbers a little bit wrong. So in the last few years, we've all been looking at, okay, what is the worst case scenario? And the IPCC, which is an international panel on climate change, has actually looked at what happens if we're reaching 2 degrees. And what turned out is they said if we reach 2 degrees, we're all in big trouble, but that won't happen for maybe another 100 years or whatever. And now they looked at it. Actually, you know what? We didn't look at this right, because if we reach 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial areas, we're already in a lot of trouble, and life will change substantially globally. And then they said, oh, when is that going to happen? And it turns out that that's in 2040. So on the current path we're on, in 2040, life as we know it will not exist. So when you listen to leading scientists and the United Nations speeches that happened over the last couple of days and in the last week, they're talking about unprecedented changes that will happen to, that would need to happen to society globally in order to give us a chance. And it doesn't look like we're getting there at the moment. But one thing we also need to acknowledge is no matter how tough it is, we will not change society. We will still consume, people will still go shopping, people will still take planes, people will still drive their car. I came to Bali in a plane. I know how bad it is for the environment, but I have no choice. We have 2 types of greenhouse gas emissions. I like to talk about avoidable greenhouse gas emissions and unavoidable greenhouse gas emissions. If we're driving a car 5 minutes down the road to do some shopping, that definitely is avoidable. We should just walk. But if we're going to another country, we have to take a plane. That's unavoidable. So what do we do about that? We do absolutely nothing. Well, what if we could turn consumption into conservation? What if the very thing every human does, and which we know we can't change, could actually contribute to saving the planet? Imagine if every purchase that happens globally would turn into climate action. Imagine if every consumption that happens would save forests. And that is what we do at Poseidon. And I'm here to tell you how we have created a platform that will empower everybody to take part in climate action and to make our world a better place and to leave it better than we found it when we arrived. What we have done is we've combined blockchain, carbon credits, and artificial intelligence into a new platform that truly has become a game changer. I started off with Poseidon as an idea last year in June. And in September last year at the New York Climate Week during the Sustainable Investment Forum, I presented Poseidon to the world. And since then, we've been working hard in creating a platform that will solve some of the challenges that exist today in the carbon markets, which are one of the best ways to support forest conservation. So I figured out that blockchain was a really good platform to use, and carbon credits in itself are fantastic assets. The only problem is that the current carbon markets don't work in the way they should be working. They are not scaling, and there are very high barriers of entry. And then, as we were working on creating the platform, I know the typical way for blockchain companies is to run out and scream very loud that they have a fantastic new project, raise money, and then try to build something. We went the other way around. We built it first, and we're now starting to raise funds, but we've built a platform, and while we were building the platform, we realized that there's so much data that we need to process that we need to get a little bit of help. So we introduced AI to it. So what we have is we have a blockchain platform that uses the inherent blockchain features of providing transparency and traceability to create a platform for carbon credits that is easily verifiable and creates trust and access in a way that doesn't exist today. We are able to perform microtransactions and transactions at a speed and at the cost that are currently not possible in the carbon markets, and we're solving two of the biggest challenges that we see in carbon markets. One of the challenges is the current carbon markets, they only process tons, and also it takes a very long time to process a carbon transaction. Now, I've been using carbon already a few times, and I've been saying like carbon credits. Probably not everybody here knows what a carbon credit is. You've probably heard what a carbon footprint is, so let me just explain you a little bit what that is. So carbon footprint, or carbon equivalent, as scientists like to call it, are basically the greenhouse gas emissions that are created when a product is produced or when a certain activity happens. If you drive a car down the road, then in order to get that car in the first place, somebody had to build it. And building that car, that created some greenhouse gas emissions. But then when you drive it and you burn fossil fuel, that creates greenhouse gas emissions as well. So, as I said earlier, there are avoidable carbon emissions and unavoidable carbon emissions. On the side of the avoidable carbon emissions, what we're basically saying is, okay, the avoidable ones, let's just see whether we as a society can change and reduce those activities. But what do we do with the unavoidable carbon emissions? If we have to take a plane to go to another country, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could at least offset it, if we could do something else somewhere else that maybe does as much good as we've done bad, or maybe do more good as we have done bad. So one of those things that we can do is forest conservation. It can be calculated how much greenhouse gas emissions are being released back into the atmosphere when trees are cut down, because the common practice around the world is you cut down trees, you burn them, and that releases carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. Just a few numbers, the average age of a tree in a rainforest is about 400 years. So for 400 years, those trees have been capturing CO2 and storing them, sequestering them in the trees themselves and in the soil. So when they're being cut down and being burned, they release that into the atmosphere. So the principle is simple. If you have an activity, like you have a factory maybe with a big chimney that blasts carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and you're responsible for 3 million tons of carbon that enter the atmosphere, if you can go to a rainforest now and prevent the cutting down and burning of trees that have a similar carbon footprint, then you have at least offset it. And that's where carbon credits come into play. So with our use of the blockchain, we now manage to create a new way of dealing with carbon credits. It's a paradigm shift where we're integrating carbon credits into the retail sector, corporates, and governments as well, to empower them to participate in climate action using a completely new platform. As we were looking at the details of how we would do that, we realized that there are two very big questions. The first question is, what is the carbon footprint of a product or service? It's pretty straightforward if you calculate how much carbon is released when you're burning a liter of fuel. But what about producing a car? There's materials, the shipping of the materials, the people that are involved, and so on and so on. So once you start looking at many different products, it becomes very complicated. So we realized if we take on a retailer who maybe has 5,000 products, we're going to be there for a very long time to figure out what the carbon footprint of each of these products is. And before we can offer consumers or corporates or governments the ability to rebalance the carbon footprint, we first have to figure out what is the carbon footprint. So what we've done is we created two AIs. We created one AI which we call the Footprint AI, and our Footprint AI uses millions of data points to then look at new products and say like, okay, this product has approximately this carbon footprint. And AI is not as genius as we all hope it to be. It does a few fancy things. It can do a lot of analytics around data, but it will never be as accurate as a human going through the carbon footprint analysis of a product. Luckily, we don't have to do that, because at Poseidon, we created something that we call climate positive. And climate positive is if you offset more than you created, because we believe we need to be regenerative. We need to reverse climate change and not just stop climate change. So our AI can handle that, because what we do is we say, all right, there's the production of a t-shirt from this and this country. And then we say, okay, the AI can calculate that the minimum carbon footprint we expect is about this figure, and the maximum carbon footprint we expect is maybe a figure a bit higher. And then we say, you know what, we add about 20% on top of the highest figure, and then we have a safe margin, and we can say that offset will cover the carbon footprint of this product. So it's a small little trick, but the AI can now blast through millions of data points and can do that for all sorts of products that we have. Interesting point, actually, how much is a carbon footprint? I'll ask you a quick question. Nobody will get this right unless you've been working with carbon credits before. I got it completely wrong, and that's why I got so excited about the opportunity we have. If you purchase yourself a pair of shoes, that pair of shoes has a carbon footprint, because the production of the shoes and shipping them over to the shop where you bought them, and the whole thing has a carbon footprint, obviously, right? So you pay $100 for a pair of shoes, let's just say. Hands up if you think it will cost about $5 or more to offset that carbon footprint. Anybody think about $5 more? Is that? Some of you. Is it maybe $2? Okay, a few more hands, maybe $1. Less than $1. It's a difficult question, right? It's 25 cents. It's nothing. And that's why it's so exciting, because when you break it down product by product, it's actually something that's achievable. You can ask somebody who buys a scoop of ice cream to pay a penny more. Because if somebody pays $3 somewhere in the UK or in the US for a scoop of ice cream, to pay 1 penny more to offset the climate impact, that should be something we answer with, of course. Why is that even a question? In fact, my opinion is that all products and services globally are priced incorrectly at the moment. Because in my opinion, what we're doing is we're only pricing production cost and material cost. We're not pricing environmental and social cost. And what will happen is those costs don't disappear. They bite us later. Climate change is one of the ways these costs bite us. So we were saying, okay, our AI can calculate it. Now we can tell our customers what is the carbon footprint they have. Now the second thing we need is we need an AI that can tell us where we take the offset from. And that's our offset AI. Our offset AI goes around and says, okay, we can find an offset for this carbon footprint in a project in Peru. We're working with a project in Cordillera Azul, where I'm very proud to say we've already conserved an area that's 24% larger than New York City. It's quite a big part of the rainforest. Makes me very proud. It's probably one of the best things I've done in my life. We've so far protected over 20 million trees, and that's just one of the projects. So there's dozens of projects around the world. So the question then is, if you would go and buy yourself a pair of shoes, where do you want to put the extra 25 cents in order to offset the carbon footprint? And an obvious answer would be, why don't you just go where the product was produced? That's where you created the emissions, let's do it there. There's lots of different areas where we're looking at. There are different interest points for a corporate, for example. It might be where your business partners are or where your supply chain is. Maybe you want to offset there. So there's, again, many, many data points, and we realize that it becomes a bit complicated if we do it case by case. So again, we created an AI, and together, I think we created a platform that can handle carbon markets really, really nicely. I know everything I've said sounds very theoretical, and it sounds very complicated to think about, but there are some good news here.
Hi, everybody. I get to talk about the fun stuff. So my name is Chidi Akutu. I'm the COO of the Poseidon Foundation. And I'd like to say what Laszlo has been talking about isn't just a dream. Now, I've been lucky enough to get involved in this project at the right time, and also get involved in our first project, our first actual implementation of the Poseidon platform. Now, we had a little survey earlier, but I think this survey will be a little bit more interesting. How many people in the room like ice cream? What? No, I expect more numbers than that. Come on, some of you are not telling the truth. Okay. All right, so we've been lucky enough to partner up with Ben & Jerry's as part of the Unilever brand to actually have our first implementation of the Poseidon platform. We have been live with the Ben & Jerry's store in Soho in London since May this year. And I always offer myself up to be the person to go and make sure it's running okay. Lots of different flavors every time. But we've been running since May this year, and as per Laszlo's point earlier, we implemented a use case where we offset a scoop of ice cream. Now, to offset a scoop of ice cream in Ben & Jerry's is less than a penny. So what Ben & Jerry's decided to do is that, look, we'll basically offset every scoop of ice cream we sell, so we'll basically provide the penny, and to make the actual scoop of ice cream climate positive. And then what we actually do is that we ask customers that come in to buy a scoop of ice cream at the point of sale, they say to them, you know, we're supporting Poseidon in this project to support forest conservation, Amazon, etc. We're contributing a penny. Do you actually want to shake hands with us and actually match our contribution? So most people go in there, you know, Ben & Jerry's ice cream, a penny. Yeah, sure, why not? What we have found is that we've had amazing feedback that where people, rather than just, you know, matching the penny contribution, are doubling it, tripling it, you know, like round it up to the, you know, next 10p, 20p, a pound. And, you know, we've had fantastic feedback from the implementation. So it just shows that people are willing to contribute to, you know, climate change at a fraction of a penny. So the point is that if we have everybody actually contributing a penny, all of us here, every time you go to buy a coffee, an ice cream, etc., it makes a difference in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And like we said, it's not a dream, it's real, it's there, it's live. This one store in Soho, London, since May, it has protected 4,700 trees, and that covers about 320 soccer fields. That's just one store that we've just started working with May this year. So imagine if we actually moved out and rolled this out to the rest of the stores. We're working with them to actually work on that, but you know, it just gives a slight example of the power of what this can do. But that's not our only use case. We've also partnered and signed up a supercar company called BAC Mono. You can see the wonderful car there. I've had a chance to sit in it, not drive it yet, but it's very nice, I assure you. So BAC Mono, a super sport car company that are based in Liverpool in England. have worked with us to actually become the first climate positive car manufacturer globally. The way we do that is that they worked with us to actually offset, actually more than offset, make it climate positive, the production and creation of the actual cars. So each car that they produce, they are actually providing a climate positive contribution via our platform, so that they are a climate positive car manufacturer. And on top of that, what they're doing is that they're offering their customers the opportunity to also offset the servicing the yearly servicing that they do on the car as well. So it's just, that's a voluntary option, but we haven't had any clients that have come back and said, no, we're not going to do that. So it's been fantastic in terms of an organization that we've also onboarded onto our platform. And on top, after that, one of the biggest and groundbreaking partnerships that we've got is with Liverpool City in London, in England, sorry. I'm from London, but it's in Liverpool. So Liverpool City in England, what we've done is that we've signed a groundbreaking partnership with them to support them to become the first climate positive city by the end of 2020. How do we do that? So we look to integrate our platform into as many of the services, products, companies, organizations within the city to make it a climate positive city. Now, we have a meeting scheduled in Liverpool in the next 2 weeks that Liverpool have invited all the businesses, the big businesses from the Liverpool City area, to a summit where we're going to be presenting to get them to join hands to make this a reality. So we've already had a number of them work with us and start working on the use cases in terms of how we can get ourselves integrated to support them in becoming the first climate positive city. The first step that the city are going to do is that they're going to become the first climate positive city council by the end of this year as well. So it's not just talk. These guys from Liverpool City are actually actioning this stuff. So they see how this could be positive for a city, and they're making it happen. And so we're going to be working with the businesses within the area to support them to make that city climate positive, which is fantastic. But alongside that, Liverpool City are going to be giving us a platform to speak at UN Cities Day in Liverpool at the end of this month as well. So we can also present what we're doing from a city perspective, how we're supporting Liverpool City with the other UN cities. And they're hosting this year, and they've given us an opportunity to have a platform there to talk about it. So, we have, and also from a government perspective, we're working with other governments. We're working with the government of Malta, working in the transportation area to work out how we actually integrate this into the transport system and look at the right use case in there. So we have ambitious goals. Now, our goal is for every individual to be able to use the Poseidon platform and work on actually offsetting or making your lifestyles, everybody's here's lifestyles climate positive by just contributing a few pence. Laszlo talked about shoes earlier. I've talked about ice cream. I don't know how many people here drink coffee. I'm a tea drinker. It's typical English. But I don't know how many people here actually drink coffee. But actually, every time you have a coffee, offsetting that, providing a penny towards offsetting your cup of coffee as well. But we have ambitious goals. We've been working with a number of organizations in the shipping. We're working with governments. We're working with retailers. We're working with service organizations, taxi organizations, things like that, and hotels, etc., to work out the right use case to actually be able to present to the rest, to any clients, any governments, any cities, in terms of actually onboarding and supporting them to be climate positive. And we've been doing this, like I said, we've only been going since May this year, and it's been fantastic feedback that we're having from everyone. I've already spoken to a number of you guys this morning about the different use cases and what we're doing, and I know some people are excited about it, as we are, in terms of actually supporting supporting what we're doing out here and supporting everyone to become climate positive. So, what's next? So, we've talked about the fact that we have the use cases, we have a pipeline of business and different clients that we're working with. We've also working on the technology side to support all of these things that we're doing. So we have a roadmap in terms of our platform, in terms of the different features that we're going to provide on our platform to the different businesses and the use cases that we're working on. So we're working with a ice cream retailer to a hoteler and to a car manufacturer, etc. It's all very different. So we're working on ensuring that we have the right features for each of these organizations or these use cases. As well as that, we have a mobile app that we're actually developing that actually helps you track, the carbon offsetting that you yourself are doing individually, or, actually keep a track of the organizations that we're working with and see how they're doing from a carbon offsetting perspective. And this is going to be available in our app. As part of that, we are developing a product catalog, similar to catalogs that you see that actually show you what the breakdown in food items that you buy. We're basically going to do it from an item or service perspective to actually show you the carbon impact of a particular service or a particular product, whether it's a t-shirt, a pair of shoes, an ice cream, coffee. And then you can, off your own back, even if you're not going to a shop, you can provide a voluntary offset via our app as well to support these climate programs or sustainable projects that we're actually supporting at the moment. And we're actually working that roadmap. We're also going to be holding yearly, annual sessions with businesses, governments, and we're actually going to have our first one next year. This year, we're actually, like I said, we're working with UN cities, we're working with Liverpool business as our first ones, which will happen at the end of this month, and we're going to have yearly rounds of these as well. So, like I said, it's not a dream. What we're doing is real, and we want it to be different, as per Laszlo's point earlier. We wanted to be an organization that had something real out there that's actually working. You can actually go and see it, you can feel it. If anybody that likes ice cream or likes London, it's been a sunny year this year, so don't worry about it. And you can actually go in and you can see our actual implementation working. We're working with others. We're going to be announcing over the next few months the other organizations we're working with. One of the other ones that I'm okay to talk about is the Olympic Stadium redevelopment in Athens, in Greece. We have partnered with the developers of that to be the organization that supports them to basically integrate our platform into the whole development. So this is the redevelopment of Olympic Stadium, the tracks, there's 2 basketball stadiums, there's the hotels, there's the shops, the retail parks, all the rest of it. Poseidon are going to be fully integrated to support them to be a fully climate positive development. So that's just an example of some of the things that we're working on. So as when we say it's not a dream, it's real. We're doing it, we're moving forward, and we're just basically looking for the support of all of you to help us, support us, give us avenues to actually continue doing this in other areas, other regions, other clients, because, like I said, all the pennies add up, and the pennies basically help us support and keep our world a climate positive one. Okay. So, I'm just going to hand over to Brad. We'll cover some of the other aspects of the investment.
Thank you, Chidi. Hello, everyone. My name is Brad Yasar, and I'm here on this stage for one reason only, because I want to leave this planet a little better than how I found it for our children. And of course, how do we change human behavior in masses? Does anyone have any idea? It usually happens through economic incentives. So we need to make people care about carbon credits and their carbon footprint. And how do we do that? Well, we need to create an economic model with our platform that works. Where do we start? Of course, we need to have carbon credits for our platform to work. So we're currently investing millions of dollars in purchasing carbon credits from different parts of the world and different projects for the purpose of reselling them. World Bank last year projected that the total carbon credit market would be $10 billion, which is where we pegged the exchange rate of our tokens. This year, in May, it was $33 billion. Again, these are World Bank numbers. If you look at the slide, they're projected to reach $185 billion by 2030. why do we care about that? Because our tokens are fixed amount of tokens, and they represent the value of the carbon credit market. So as the carbon credit market grows, the exchange rate is going to be favorable for our stakeholders. We have a forward-looking token allocation. And again, this is a nonprofit foundation we have. We're doing this for the betterment of the world. We're not trying to make huge profits with this. And you know, ideally, the carbon market will disappear in the next 10, 20 years because we'll find ways to clean up our mess and not even need it. But in the interim, we want to do something about it. So 50% of our tokens go to the contributors. Again, with those contributions, 80% of them are going to go to carbon credit purchases, which means majority of the money that comes into the platform is going to be used for taking off carbon credits off the market. We set aside 7.5%. I want to emphasize this for the founding team and advisors and everyone involved. This is not just for the current team, but future as well. So the 7.5% pool is designed to take care of this project and its contributors for the rest of it, for the life of the project. The foundation gets 12% for growth and operations, and we have a liquidity pool that's 30%. Again, that's strong statement because we're allocating 30% of our tokens for the liquidity of this platform, which is important to allow for a lot of activity and a lot of carbon credits to go in and out of the platform or be transferred. We have a circular investment model. What does that mean? Well, imagine if you had given to a nonprofit and every dollar you give actually made an impact of $10, $20, $30. That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? That's our model. You buy one token, give us $1. We use 80% of that token to buy carbon credits. We sell that. We buy wholesale, sell it retail, and then all the sales go back to buying carbon credits. So what we anticipate is that we're going to probably, every life cycle of the purchase at wholesale and resale at the retail price, increase our buying power by 50%. And if you do the math, after 2-3 cycles, the numbers are very significant. We're also doing this to support local communities. We're obviously starting with deforestation. How many here have ever visited a rainforest? Let's see a show of hands. Anyone? One person. Okay, couple people. How many of you took your children or family members? No one. So no one in this group that probably has families and children had an opportunity to show them how beautiful and amazing the rainforests are. How about the coral reef? Anyone has been to the coral reef? Okay, a few more people. Did you take your families there? Have they seen it? One person. I mean, imagine the loss that your families are going to suffer not being able to see those things if we continue the way we do. So we want to...
So I just wanted to say a couple of more words to the supporting of the local communities.
Sure.
It's really important. We didn't invent this. Supporting local communities is not a Poseidon invention. Carbon credits is not a Poseidon invention. And running sustainable development projects in rainforests around the world is not a Poseidon invention. I strongly believe when one starts a business, one should not try to reinvent every wheel that was ever invented. Our unique contribution to this is that we found a way to combine the carbon credit markets with blockchain technology and AI, and to bring it to the wider masses, to allow everybody to participate in climate action. That's really what we're about. We're about empowering. So we want to empower you and everybody else out in the world, whether they're a corporation or a government or an individual, to participate in climate action. And for that, we've partnered with the best in their fields. We're built on the Stellar platform because we think it's the most environmental friendly platform out there with a fantastic consensus model. And we've partnered with a company called Ecosphere Plus, which has probably the best reputation in the carbon credit markets for supporting sustainable development projects that really hit the mark when it comes to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So what we have here with the Sustainable Development Goals is these are these colorful little squares down there. They were put up by the United Nations to represent different areas that are challenges to mankind. For example, poverty, education, food, livelihood, gender equality, and so on and so on. All the carbon credits that we buy have to fulfill a very high mark. We're very, very critical when we're selecting carbon credits for our platform. They all satisfy VCS, which is the Verified Carbon Standard, one of the highest carbon standards in the world by a company called Verra, and CCB standards, which is the Climate, Community, and Biodiversity Standard. And by that, we ensure that these carbon credits we use, that they really support the biodiversity, the local communities, there's gender equality, there's education, and so on and so on. These 17 SDGs from the United Nations are being covered by these projects that we're supporting. So we didn't invent this, but we're bringing it to you. We're supporting projects that have shown for years that they work, because you don't stop deforestation by buying a piece of land. You don't go to the rainforest and you buy it and you say, oh no, nobody's going to cut it down, because they still will. You have to go to the root of the problem. Why do the people cut down the rainforest? Communities that have lived in rainforest for generations, some of them in the Amazon, they've never met anybody from the outside world. They don't wake up in the morning and say like, hey, you know what, honey, let's cut down some trees. They do that because they feel this is a way for them to interact with the rest of the world. Because guess what? If you live in the Amazon and you want to interact with the rest of the world, first time you start talking to them, you figure out that you need something called money. And how do you get something called money when you live in the rainforest? Well, you don't, unless some mafia organization comes to you and says like, you know what, we're an illegal mining operation and we do illegal palm oil plantations. If you help us chop down some trees, don't worry about what we do with it. Well, help us chop down some trees, we give you some money. And these communities say, okay, cool, that's one way to get money, let's do that. What we do is we go there and we give them alternatives. We say, you know what, you don't have to cut down the trees. We show you how you can grow cocoa, turn the cocoa into chocolate bars, make that part of a global fair trade system, sell it, and you have an income stream. That's not like a palm oil plantation totally ruining your space up to a point that that land is no longer fertile and you can't grow anything there anymore. We'll show them how to do it in harmony with the forests so that they have sustainability for their generation and the future generations. And as I said, we didn't invent this. This is working. So we decided these are the projects we want to support. So right now, the Poseidon platform is buying carbon credits exclusively from forest conservation projects. And we're also using our input into the science community to further another carbon credit type, which is basically the conservation of coastal areas. Those are called blue carbon, and they will come in the future. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff. We're working with the UN. Chidi mentioned earlier UN World City Day, which is going to be in Liverpool at the end of October. We have a platform there. We're going to also present what we do. And as he said, we have very ambitious goals to go forward.
But Laszlo, how do they take control with Poseidon? I think we should talk about how we're bringing carbon credits to the individual level and not corporations, not governments, because those entities are already doing what they do best, look after their own self-interest. But now you can actually take action with a simple app and take care of geographical areas, causes, forests, as an individual.
Because that's what we want to do. We want to give you control. We want to empower you. Because, let's just be honest, no matter how much a government or a corporation wants to do this, governments need time to change. With the best intention, governments take time. Corporations have to fulfill stakeholder needs. They take time, and they will do as much as they can. But each one of us, we can go above and beyond. When we asked consumers at Ben & Jerry's, if they want to give another penny to forest conservation, it blew our minds. Because what happened is not that people gave a penny, people rounded up to the next pound. A scoop of ice cream is a staggering £3.20. I will never get my head around that. When I was young, ice cream was much cheaper, but that's what it is. So £3.20 for a scoop of ice cream. People came and bought 2 scoops of ice cream. That's £6.40. And when they were asked if they want to give a penny to forest conservation, they said, you know, make it 7. That's 60 pennies when 1 penny would have offset the carbon footprint. That's 60 times. Or another way to say it, we only need to get 1 in 60 people to do that, and we have offset the carbon footprint of all products and services. I'm pretty sure we're going to get more people to do it, and I'm sure that people will get addicted to it because we will have a mobile app that will allow people to see the impact they have, because that is also an issue that we're addressing. One of the issues we have today in philanthropic or in charitable giving is that we give money to an organization and we have no clue what happens with it. We don't know how much of that money is going where. But with the blockchain integration that we have, you will see where every single penny you give goes and what impact it has. And I believe that's addictive. I've done it and I'm addicted. I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever done. So we want to empower you and we want to give you control. We want you to be part of this journey. We want you to join hands with us. And now, really, it's up to you whether you want to be part of what we're doing.
So, like I said, if you join hands with us, please come and speak to us at the stand or at the stand outside. Ask us any questions. We'll be happy to speak to you about anything. But, you know, it's been a pleasure speaking with you guys today.
And we have these tokens for you if you stop by the booth to offset your carbon footprint while you traveled here.
So what we will do, if you come to our booth and give us the chance to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing, we will give you one of these beautiful wooden chips. And we will then later, we have a limited number of these tokens, and for each one of those tokens, we will then later retire an equivalent amount of carbon credit to make sure that your travel and your visit to this summit has been climate positive.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.